Last weekend was YCS Sydney. It's currently Tuesday now. I was meant to record a video as soon as I got back on the Sunday, but I was flat out exhausted after 2 long days of just Yu-Gi-Oh trading, selling, buying, and just, I guess, overall socializing. Had a really good time, but I can say that as someone who hadn't really played too much in the meta prior to the event, I was able to learn more about the meta and more about the top decks during those 2 days than the entire week or so I'd spent practicing. So this is something that has been long awaited. This is of course the deck profile of the deck that I played during the YCS. Sadly, did not do too well. However, I do think, and this is the only reason why I want to share this deck, I do think that this deck has potential. Let me explain why. I feel like if I tinkered around with the deck a bit more and I practiced a bit more against, let's say, the top meta decks, I would have been able to better build this deck. There are some small changes, but overall, I think I'm quite happy with the deck. Let's go over the list, and I'll talk about the reasoning and everything else afterwards. So starting off with the extra deck, we have the Sprint, we have 2 Gigantics, we have Mosquito, the Soul Sweeper, and Mannequin Cat. We have an SP, a Nightmare Phoenix, and you can see there's a Garura and a Mud Dragon, which means you guys know Super Poly's back in the deck. Then we have a Typhon, Bucephalus, Intis, Aggregator, and the Marlong. So a really strange mix of extra deck monsters at the end there, you might say. That is correct, because we are playing a blind second deck, a different variant from what I'm normally used to playing. Shout outs to Lucas, who kind of gave me the idea. So at one of the OTS championships that we played in, he was actually playing he was playing Striker actually, and he mentioned that going second seemed really strong. And it's like, wow, Evenly did so much work. Obviously, as a Sprite deck, we can't really play Evenly. Well, we can, but ideally we want to kill them in one turn, and Evenly stops you from doing so, because your win con is, Mosquito or Gamma Burst, clear the board and Gamma Burst for game. Similar idea, so what we're doing here is we are running a couple of more Chummies in the main deck, and we're running essentially just board breakers otherwise. So it's kind of like a power spell Sprite, except we're not running any of the Sky Striker stuff. Considered it briefly, but don't think it was the best approach, so this is what we have left. Alright, starting with the main deck now. So we have 3 blue, of course, 3 jet, red, carrot, 1 of each. Again, we'll never change that unless I really want, 2 reds or something, but I like it as it is. Then we have 3 beaver, 3 angler, and 1 sunfish. So the nimble package, +1 with the nimble sunfish, the little cousin of the angler. Sunfish, if you don't know what it does, is when it's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can then send another a fish type monster. So it's meant to be itself. You send another copy, and then you special the 3rd copy. The 3rd copy is optional though, as in the additional sunfish that you summon from your deck is optional. So what you do is you crash in to whatever attack position monster they have, send the angler, and then you won't summon a second sunfish, but on a new chain you go angler, summon 2 beavers for the extra bodies for Mosquito. So that was the sunfish. The reason why we're playing 3 angler as well is because we're playing a lot of discard cards, which you guys will see soon. Obviously, you know that Super Poly is one of them. Then we have 3 starter, we have a Gamma Burst, and that's it for the Sprite stuff. And then we have the hand traps. So we're only playing a couple of hand traps because this main deck is 42 currently. I think we can cut it down to 41, and I'll tell you which card I'll cut out afterwards. So 3 4 loss, because 4 loss is simply the best, more chummy right now. This is a bit of a questionable main deck. So I put 3 meows in my main deck, and that was only because I thought that was a little bit better than Perulia, given the amount of Malice plays that we had in, Sydney and Australia as a collective whole. There were a lot of Ryzeal plays as well, and I thought, okay, well, if I draw a meows, it still does something. I can just channel to Luri, and then they'll, special summon it back, and I can draw 1. And then against Memento as well, it's really good. obviously the special bunch from the graveyard. This will essentially turn skip them. It has its other applications, but it was mainly just Memento and Malice, which is why I chose to main deck this, and because it still did something against Fiendsmith Raziel. Obviously, Perulia is a really safe main deck option as well. To be honest, I could see the argument to run Perulia in the main deck as opposed to the Meows, but just, I guess, choice, right? For what it's worth, I think if I did draw Meows in a lot of my matchups, it would have done really well. Unfortunately, I did not draw it in I think I drew it like maybe 2 or 3 times throughout the entire weekend. Yeah, not too great. So next we have the board breakers. We have 3 super polys. We have 3 droplet. So a lot of discard cards just for the angler, but also these cards are so good for board breaking. You have a detonator, just droplet it, right? Like they can't really use its effect unless they send it off and then get it back later on with, I think it was plug-in. But even then, it feels really bad because they only have 1 material under it. Yeah, so droplet, insane card. Super Poly, obviously, really good as well. I really like the aspect where they can't actually respond to it. And so, break their boards, discard a card, potentially Angler, get 2 bodies of Angler, and then an additional one of the Super Poly. Then we have 2 thrusts and 1 talents. Then we have 3 ulti slays. This card is so good. I feel like as long as you don't get shifted, it does amazingly. Same goes for droplet. So this card stops everything from coming back again, right? Meaning, you know, if you send it to grave instead, they can potentially reborn it with whatever means. Same with Malice, I suppose. But yeah. You send off any of these targets. You send off the Marlong for Blue Eyes players, so you bounce the Synchro. You also get to return a card to the hand once this goes to the grave. You know, you can negate something with Aggregator. Everyone knows what this does. Intis is just for fusions. You also pop 1. Persepolis dumps a fusion monster. So if you don't hard draw the Super Poly as well, and you see a board that won't make a Garura, you can also dump a Garura to like refill and replenish your hand. Then of course you can also just dump whatever else if you use multiple. Because remember, Ultimate Slayer is not once per turn, so you can break the board slowly by activating 1 at a time, clear the monsters, and then do your thing. The extra deck choice monsters were just ways of generating or either more value or more material. Marlong was, just a quick side story, was in here originally because, look, I have the receipts for this. I was originally talking to one of my friends. We had like a big like brainwave moment in the middle of the night at like 12 a.m. or something. We're like, oh my god, Metal Trennis is insane. And Metal Trennis, look, I spent a good amount of time cooking up like a list that I tried playing with like 1 week before YCS. Did not work, had to make big changes, cut Metal Trennis out, got rid of that, whatever. But I have the receipts. This was before Metal Trennis really like popped off, so we did not hop on the bandwagon. We actually tried to pioneer something ourselves before that. But anyway, Marlong was meant to be a Metal Trennis target. You target any, again, Blue Eyes monster because it's light and dragon. Also has a synchro effect, so it worked with Ultimate Slayer. I had a deck where I played Marlong and I played Magnum the Reliever because it's a light Fiend 2800 attack monster. It's also a fusion monster, which means Ulti Slayer has a fusion target. And at that point, I wasn't playing the Super Poly, so I was like, oh my god, you play Ulti Slayer, you have a fusion target. You play Metal Trennis, you can target DDD, Wave King Caesar, you know, negate it, summon the Magnum the Reliever because it's 2800 and a Fiend. Unfortunately, did not end up working out because when I tested it, it just got impulsed or ashed like every single time. So I'm like, okay, well, like I can't really resolve this, in which case it's just a 1-for-1 trade. I'd rather play something that, you know, your opponent cannot actually respond to properly, not just something that will stop your opponent from using that one monster, that targeted monster's effect. It's not good enough. All right. And then we have 2 Lightning Storms. Lightning Storm and Duster, I feel like hard carried this weekend because there are so many decks, and I feel like decks in general, right, typically have like at least a trap or some kind of back row disruption. I should say. So whether that be like Rizal Cross, for example, the field spell. You can also have like the Malice traps. You can trigger everything beforehand, so they can't actually use them as interruptions per se. For example, MTPO7, I believe, is the one that banishes, right? You search one from deck, and then you banish one on your opponent's field. You duster them beforehand, Lightning Storm, whatever. Stops them from disrupting you at an opportune moment. You also use this against Blue Eyes players. You can bait out the Drill Beam because that's the only form of negate unless they go and tag into the Dragon early. But yeah, overall, I feel like Backrow Hate is the right move this format. It's kind of paired with like Evenly, right? Because you want to remove so much of their field, including their back row and their monsters with Evenly. Well, at least this covers a half of the portion. Against Blue Eyes players, for example, right? And this is just about like structuring your plays. The idea, again, the general idea behind this deck is that you draw a lot of cards off the Molchamis, enough so that you can break their boards. You just want to sequence your cards so that you're able to bait out negates and whatever. So let's say they have a Drill Beam. Obviously, you're not going to throw the Duster straight away if that's the only form of like back row removal. So maybe you'll try and like activate a starter to try to bait it out. It's risky because if they let it resolve, then Lightning Storm can't be used because you have a face-up monster. But maybe a better example would be like Ultimate Slayer. You activate Ultimate Slayer, you target their Synchro. They're like, oh my god, I gotta save my monster. Activate the Drill Beam, and then next chain you go, okay, Lightning Storm back row, pops their True Light. Their True Light forcefully pops their monsters, and then you attack for game. So that's the idea behind it. That's Blue Eyes. It also does something against Malice and Rizal, but also Memento. Memento, I think they always set like Bone Party and Memento Fusion, so they have two forms of disruption in terms of like back row cards on your turn. Also against Blue Eyes, I keep going back to Blue Eyes because I'm like, oh my god, Blue Eyes has so many like back row cards. They also have the Majesty, the trap that pops, and Spright obviously hates that, right? Because you want to connect and you want to stick a 2 on board, and they're like, okay, we're going to remove your 2 so you can't actually summon more monsters. So back row hate, amazing. Then we have Foolish Burial. This is just a one-off to dump an Angler, I should say. Yeah. So if we run 4 Nimble monsters, being able to sprint and Foolish, or discard off Droplet or Super Poly, or even like Phoenix in the side in the extra deck, and then also activating, let's say like a Foolish off of Thrust, is so good because you automatically have like another way of generating 2 more buddies essentially for free. And if you draw into any of them, worst case scenario, you draw into an Angler with no ways of like discarding it, you can still normal summon it, special summon, whatever else. So yeah, Foolish is just there because it's a thrust target that lets you OTK enable everything. Let's say you break their board, you're both empty, you have 1 card in hand, it's a thrust. They still have a monster on field, you activate it, get the Foolish, and of course, if you know the combos to OTK, you do blue, jet, overlay, blah, blah, blah. Summon the 2 beavers, overlay gigantic, get blue, get jet, search, gamma burst. If you have an extra body, then you can OTK by going into Onibimaru, banish, and then, yeah. Last card is Change of Heart. I think this is the one card that I would cut out from the main deck to make it 41. It trades 1 for 1 generally, and the idea was, well, you take their body and then just maybe a extra mosquito body. If they do allow you to take it, yeah, it's just an extra mosquito body or like a link body, but I don't think it's really worthwhile playing. It came up like once or twice, like it's not terrible. It's still at worst maybe like a Droplet fodder, right? You activate this, you chain a couple of other things, and then you activate Droplet to get a couple of things on board. But I don't think Change of Heart was super important. It's not bad, but can consider cutting. Alright, for the side deck now, we have 3 Perulia. So I mentioned that this Might have been a little bit better than Meows, but personally, I think in Australia, Meows is a little bit better at the moment. This unfortunately has picked up a little bit in terms of like seeing play because after Fire Kings won a YCS, people were like, "Oh, we gotta have the tech for them as well. We can't just rely on Meows and Full Loss because neither of those two cards do anything against Fire Kings." So if Perulia sees more play, obviously Spright struggles a little bit more, and this segues into another reason why I think going second is the right play. Generally, if you eat a hand trap or two going first, there's a chance you play through it because, like, you know, everyone's like, "Oh, Spright, you hand trap them once or twice." They always do it incorrectly. They're like, Vela, you're blue or something, and you're like, "Okay, well, I can still make a gigantic and combo off." They're like, "Oh, you know, I couldn't have played any better." They could have, but they didn't. Generally, if you hand trap once or twice, there's a good chance as well that you summon Gigantic to protect yourself from Nib. It gets ashed. You can't extend further. You pass there. What I'm trying to get at with this is that if you're playing going second and you're trying to like clear their board and do everything, and you have a couple of extra resources from the Mochamis, and you're able to, you know, maybe tactics, look at the hand, tactics talent, of course, look at the hand, know what to play optimally to like get to them while playing around the hand traps, you'll be fine. The other thing is that you play around the Mochamis. Like the easiest way to play around Mochamis is not to figure out the best way to play through it if you're forced to go first. It's to instead just, you know, well, if you choose to go first and you want to like make a turd, whatever, I think the best way to play around Mochamis is to just go second because they will have cards on board. They won't be able to activate the Mochamis. They will be dead in their hand. A lot of people are main decking the 4 losses. In fact, I think everyone is basically. Some people are even main decking the Perulias as well. So if you happen to get unlucky, and in a long tournament, it's very likely that, apologies for the beeping, there is a very good chance that you're going to get, you know, 4 lost or Mochamied Peruliad in game 1 because you're going first. This is just a surefire way of making sure that you don't get hit by those. So no need to worry about caught by or ashes. You might have seen like no ashes in the main deck either. We don't need to worry about all of that. Yeah, you're all good. Next is 3 Nibiru's, so more hand traps in the main deck. And I might save these for last, actually. So let's talk about the rest of these. So Malice Hate. If you get shifted, it kind of sucks because it turns off your droplets. It turns off your ultimate slayers as well. Something else I want to point out is that you have so many different variants in terms of like builds and end boards for Malice from what I've seen so far, right? I think I played against like at least 3 or 4, and they ended on a different board basically every single time between each player. Memento as well, might I add. Like I had one Memento player ending with a Griffin in the banished zone, and then you had the Chimera in the graveyard that banishes and special summons back a Fiend from the banished zone or the graveyard. And then I also had like ones that just played pure Backrow disruption, like almost like an Unchained layered level of disruption. But yeah, different variants. What I'm trying to get at is Malice. If they shifter, it's kind of tough. Lancia is almost mandatory. You play 3 of them. 1 Chaos Hunter. I don't like playing 3 because like even though you get to discard and do whatever, going neg 1 feels really bad. So I'd rather just play the 1, and that is primarily as just a mannequin target. Mannequin target going second, well, let's talk about that in a second. The Christia, also just a mannequin target, right? Against, for example, you can use against Fiendsmith, but mainly against Blue Eyes. Yeah. Alright, let's talk about the remaining cards and what the main weakness of going second decks is. Can you guess? It's going first, right? Just like Tenpai, they at least have like Seals Pass. We can make a board. It's not a very good board, but it's going to be like a sprint, either red or carrot, maybe a mannequin cat, maybe a gigantic instead, maybe both. But if we're not playing like the frog stuff, we're going to have a slightly weaker going first end board. So instead, if we are made to go first, I wanted to put in cards that would almost just steal a turn. And in a way, this kind of backfired against me a little bit later down the line. Not backfired, but like it also happened to me where I got turn skipped It's quite awkward. But yeah, I'll talk about that in a second when I talk about my matchups. So for going first cards, we have Sanctum, we have D-Barry, we have DDG, and we have some more Archfiends. I think this card can also be cut. I was like, oh yeah, this trap is pretty good against Ryziel because they want to make multiple XCs, and then maybe if they get greedy with the duo drive, they won't be able to make a detonator. But and also against Malice because they link off a bunch. But I think this kind of hits Ryziel Fiendsmith well enough as a going first trap. This hits like the rogue random decks, the synchro decks, the God forbid pendulum decks, and then Sanctum obviously just hits Malice because you special summon the Lancia and then you banish it and tribute it off, and then they can't banish monsters anymore. So this card is expendable. This can be switched out for whatever else. What would I play? I don't know. But I also swap out the nibs, in my opinion, for shifters. So this is a bit of a sidetrack, but I feel like I've already finished talking about everything there. Yeah, I would probably also play shifters over nibs. Maybe I just nibbed incorrectly, but also when it did come up, I just felt like it wasn't that good, right? So I put it in primarily because I feel like it hits most of the top decks, including Blue Eyes, but I didn't play a single player who extended an excessive amount unless they wanted to kill. And I got to use nib once, but I couldn't really recover after that, so it's whatever. The shifters at least will shut down rogue decks really well, especially let's say Memento. Memento's not really rogue anymore, it's quite good actually, but it's another turn skip. You only really want to put it in against decks that will hard lose to shifter, and I mean like the entire deck, for example Fire King or Memento off the top of my head, right? Whereas decks like Primite Blue Eyes, if you know they're playing the Primite stuff and they can hard draw 6 starter cards being Beryl or Lordly Load, then you probably don't want to play shifter because you're going to hurt yourself a lot as well by turning off a lot of your other cards, e.g. Anglers, Ulti Slayers, and Droplets. But I'll probably put that in over the nibs, and it's a very situational side in. Before I move into the matchups, I want to give a couple of shout-outs quickly. So first of all, first shout-out goes to Bert. I was hoping to meet him this YCS as well. He's a fellow Australian, and he ended up giving me a QCR Swap Frog as a gift. He messaged me and he was like, hey man, you got one? I'm like, oh no, I'm just playing like regular ultra rares or whatever I could find. And he was like, oh, you can have this for free, just chuck me your address. And I was like really appreciative of it. So it's a shame that I wasn't able to meet you this YCS. I wanted to thank you in person, but yeah, I wanted to show this on screen quickly because you encouraged me to get 2 more QCR Swap Frogs. So that's the set complete. I love them. They're really nice. They're awesome. Shame I'm not playing them this list, but I'm sure they'll make a return, right? Yeah, okay, let's get into our matchups. So over the weekend, I played the main event, obviously, and I also played 2 other smaller side events. One was a winner mat, which is not really worthwhile mentioning. However, I will mention a bit about like the matchups of what I can remember at least. So winner mat, I lost in the final round. It was like win 3. The typical, like, I think it's typical at least. I don't know how it is like elsewhere in the States, in Europe, whatever. But you grab 8 players, you pay your entry, you get 2 packs, and then the person who makes it to the end after 3 rounds gets to win the mat. And then I also playing the Giant card. The Giant card, I lost in top 8. So I won 3 games in a row. And then it's single elimination, of course, for both of those side events because otherwise like the tournaments will take too long. If I got to top 8, then I could have gotten like a slightly oversized card at least guaranteed, so I could walk away with something, but not the case, unfortunately. Because I lost to, I think it was it was Riot. No, it was Memento in that one. Yeah, I lost to Memento. So this is a bit of tech, and what I meant by like the safety, what's the term for it? The safety rail or something. I can't. I have a mind blank right now, right? Like with the turn skips, even if they make you go first, you can turn skip them. Assuming they're like, let's say Parole, you draw phase. That happens a lot, by the way. You thrust into one of the traps, or if you hard draw, just set it to turn skip them. Well, Memento, first of all, made me go first once, and these are two different players, right? One of them made me go first, and I didn't respect him enough because I was like, oh, I don't think he's caught on yet, because it's a bit of a gamble, right? If you think they've caught on to you, caught on to the fact that you have chosen to go second, well, you have a going second deck, then they might choose to go first again. And in that case, you can, keep one extra going second card as opposed to siding in a potential brick. Let's say they choose to go first, and you draw the going first card that you put in to put in as like a safety card, right? So he won the dice roll for that one, and for the first one, and he chose to go first. I broke his board, killed him, and then he made me go first the second time. So what I'm trying to say is, if you win the dice roll and you choose to go second, it's more obvious that you're, forcefully going second. If they win the dice roll and they go first, then it's not as obvious. They might not catch on. They're like, oh, maybe you're just playing a mixture of going second cards, and they won't actually make you go first. But I should have respected it. I should have put in the trap regardless. But I felt extra greedy. I was like, haha, it's one more card. And yeah, that was not too good. Anyway, back to the back to the giant card. So the giant card player played really well. We went 1-1, and then the final round, he activated a couple of cards in draw phase with Bone Party to pop things and then, gather some resources. And then he hit me with a heat wave, and I was like, bro, what the fuck? It was really good. Couldn't do anything. Obviously, Tenpai players, or anyone who's played against the Tenpai player playing that card would know what it does. Couldn't summon anything. Had to set like a super poly and something else, and then pass turn. I think I had a nib in hand as well. Yeah, lost to him. That was really bad. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. I had a ton of fun. I got to meet a lot of people that I otherwise wouldn't have met without like an interstate event like this, right? So yeah, really good time. All right, some quick shout outs as well, aside from Bert. I also want to mention David for lending me a mat. I wasn't too sure if this non-official mat was allowed in a YCS, so on the last night before the event, I was like, hey, does anyone have one to lend? David offered, and two other people as well, actually, James and Nathan. Thank you guys as well for offering to lend me the mats. And then another shout out to Rio as well. I think he lent me 2 cards. He lent me the Typhon, and he also lent me a Perulio to borrow for the event. So I'm very grateful for those cards and those guys as well. And yeah, that's going to be everything for this profile. Let me know if you agree with my takes. I think this deck is unfortunately a little bit power crept. I say this every time. Like compared to the top decks right now, there's no recursion and we require 2 cards to start. I think this is probably the way to go for this format in particular, especially while more Charmies are in the main deck and while draw isn't a thing. This deck can do a lot in terms of just board breaking and then OTKing. If you guys want combo videos, let me know. Maybe I can't post combo videos because I keep going second, right? It depends on their board. But maybe I'll look into playing some games on DB, because I did that the night before as well, just to test. And I was like, okay, I won a couple of games here and there. If you guys want to see those games, let me know, and I'll try and record some and post them up. That's about it from me. I will see you guys in the next one. Laters.